A disturbing anti-Semitic incident in Clayton, Missouri, and a targeted act of hate. 3 vehicles were set on fire on a quiet residential street, and there was a chilling phrase spray painted in the driveway of a home. It said, "Death to the IDF." Trey, what do we know about this story?
Yeah, so it seems like the attack was specifically targeting an American citizen who had recently returned home after serving in the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces. So, and in addition to that, like gross anti-Semitic message that was sprayed on the road there, there was another blurred message. We couldn't see exactly what it was. It was blurred, obviously, for protection of identity, that accused the IDF soldier, the veteran, of being a murderer, which is indicating obviously a direct threat toward this individual. So, I mean, there's a lot of scary pieces to this story. Nobody was hurt, thankfully, in the immediate incident. But the fact that this level of hatred and this level of targeting was there is enough to shake not only, of course, the victim, but that whole community.
Yeah, and obviously you've got 3 cars, 3 vehicles that were torched,
right?
And you have the Jewish Federations of St. Louis. They've put out a statement. They said, "We condemn in the strongest terms the attack on members of our community last night. This is more than vandalism. It is a hateful act of intimidation and only the latest example of what happens when anti-Semitic and anti-Israel rhetoric are normalized." We've also seen responses from others in government. I'll read one of those responses in a minute, but Trey, we're watching these things happen in America now. They're happening around the world, but this conflict with Israel and in Gaza, it is really reverberating throughout the entire world. And this anti-Semitism is completely horrific, and it's on the rise.
Yeah, it's not only on the rise generally, but it's also on the rise in some facets of the right. Now, they still remain, that still remains a minority. The vast majority of the right is pro-Israel and doesn't spew this kind of anti-Semitic stuff. But we are seeing this kind of new right where some of this is happening, and it's not going away. I was just looking at a Brookings Institute study that they partnered with The Economist and YouGov, the survey that just came out that shows anti-Semitism, or I shouldn't say anti-Semitism, anti-Israel sentiment, more specifically, is on the rise, not just among Democrats, but also among young people writ large. And I think that's part of the reason why we're seeing this, is people are struggling to parse the difference between saying, I disagree with some of the policy positions of Israel, and anti-Semitism. We're seeing that bleed together in really disturbing ways.
Yeah, here's the other thing. You're going to see the U.S. government at a federal level really tackle some of this, at least through rhetoric. They're saying they're going to much more diligently than they claim other administrations have. The Department of Justice Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism, Leo Terrell, he put out a statement. He's the guy who leads that government body. He said, anyone who's going to make an attack on Jewish Americans, you can expect criminal charges. He later took to X, where he said the Trump administration was going to ensure that those who were committing any sort of anti-Semitic hate crimes, that they will be brought to justice with zero tolerance. They are not going to tolerate what he called Jew hatred in America. So this is, it's horrific to think that people have to live with this sort of fear. Here's somebody who went and served in the IDF, and even if somebody disagrees with what the IDF is doing or what Israel is doing, to go after somebody and to go after a family in such a horrific way, torching vehicles, spray painting a message about death to the IDF. What in the world are we coming to as a society where this is the sort of thing that is apparently seen as a positive? These people obviously thought this was the right thing to do.
Yeah, well, in this disgusting, grotesque anti-Semitism, we should give context to this. A lot of this has been going on, of course, for many, many, many years, but it's since the October 7th, 2023 attack that here at home, it has really skyrocketed. So FBI data, just to give a little bit more background here, show that a record number of 1,938 anti-Jewish hate crimes occurred in 2024. That comprises 16% of all hate crimes and nearly 70% of all religiously motivated hate crimes. So the Jewish community is certainly facing a disproportionate number of the crimes that are fueled by hatred. And also, one other thing that I want to reference, Billy, before we go on to the next thing, is this Economist and YouGov survey. It found that among young voters, 45% believe that Israel is committing genocide against Palestinians. So much of this is fueled by complete mis and disinformation.
Yeah. And, I'll also add here, I think this is important. An Anti-Defamation League representative, they commented on something here that I think is interesting. They said that it's dangerous, this whole globalize the intifada, the statement that is often put out there, calling people to arms across the globe, that examples like this, people see this as, oh, this is an example of living that out, the terrifying nature of living that out against the Jewish people. And to your point, obviously October 7th, we've also seen hatred of Jewish people throughout history. We see it in scripture. Right. We see it with Esther and Haman and what happened in that story. It is a repeated evil. We saw it with Adolf Hitler. And this is just the latest iteration of what Hamas has done, the manipulation, the death, the violence, and the chaos. And to see that pour over into our country is very sad. And we'll continue to cover this as the story unfolds. Any final thoughts, Trey?
Yeah, I think, my one final thought on this is we've covered so much of it, Billy, but I think it's important to continue to raise our voices. As Christians, we have a responsibility to call out any evil against any human being, because that's another image bearer, right? That's a fellow image bearer, a human being created in God's image, and they're not deserving of this kind of evil and violence carried out against them. But certainly, as you laid out just briefly there with scripture, with the Jewish people, I think that so much of this is rooted in a spiritual blindness and a spiritual darkness that has, really grabbed our culture. And it's critical that we use our voices, whatever platform we have, whether that's conversations with friends and family or using YouTube and social media like we are here, whatever it is. It's important to call out and condemn this evil whenever and wherever we see it.
Trey, appreciate you joining me and breaking it all down today.